All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a beautiful Wednesday evening, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time together this evening. Thank you very much for being here. And thanks for the 11K likes on TikTok. I really do appreciate that. Let me show my appreciation by clapping and sharing. Thank you. Thank you very much. But please don't stop tapping. Let's keep liking the live. And please, if you're on TikTok, please click on the heart icon up here and drop a heart me, drop a gift. Let's try and push the live to the FYP together, okay? YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and Twitch, and of course, we're in our studio. TikTok is the studio. All right. God is good. How's everybody? How's your week been so far? Today is Wednesday, so I'm sure a lot of people are back in the office. Or are there people here who are still taking? I mean, unless of course you're a businessman. So businessmen can decide sometimes just want to wait another week before you resume. The interesting thing about business or being an entrepreneur though is that sometimes you work without holidays. So if you're giving yourself extra days, enjoy. All right. Today we're looking at the news, Azikiwe, Yoruba bots, and Obidients. And the title, of course, is, was inspired by some things that I've been noticing on social media for a while. And so we'll be getting to that later. Preacher's Boy says, not sometimes, most times. Yes. Entrepreneurs, someone said that if you leave your 9 to 5 because you want to have time for yourself and you choose to become an entrepreneur, you have made the wrong decision, because you really have time for yourself. You have to work sometimes 16 hours, 18 hours, just to, if not more in some cases. Sometimes you because when the profit, when it comes, you forget the stress. So may God bless your work, and may God bless everybody. All right. So thank you everyone for being here. Again, if you're on TikTok, please don't stop our tapping, and also click on this heart icon. Just click on it, drop a heart me. If you're not a member, join, and drop a gift, drop a heart, anything. Just drop something, because for some interesting reasons, I should call it weird, the way TikTok is wired, no matter if you pay gifts in a particular place, then folks are directed to that live stream. Amen. Us on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. If you're on YouTube and Facebook, please like the live and share as well. Want to make sure that we push the stream together. And if you're on X, the news, like we always do, and then we'll get to Zik, Yoruba bots, and Obedience. Okay, so that's the lineup for today. By the way, I noticed the last time we were here, we were on camera, that was on Monday. We were here yesterday. Yesterday was quite fun. It was lovely. We might revisit some of the things we talked about today. It was quite nice. But I noticed that on Monday, while we're having this interesting session, people kept writing 2 or 3 or 4-0. The clock. Later, I discovered that apparently Nigeria had a match. So much for, I guess I'm not so. Anyway, thank God Nigeria won. And it's actually quite nice that we trashed Mozambique 4-0. It's going to get better, hopefully. Quite nice. It's good news. although you would expect everybody to just celebrate and move on, somehow it's been ethnicized, politicized, and all kinds of, in fact, in some cases even feminized, as it wasn't feminine enough. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the press release put out earlier today. It was actually yesterday. President Tinubu appoints first female Director General of Nigerian Law School. I don't know if you've heard the news, but it's actually quite nice. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the appointment of Dr. Olugbemisola Titilayo Odushote as the Director General of the Nigerian Law School. The appointment takes effect on January 10, 2026 for a 4-year term. Dr. Odushote, 57, is currently the Deputy Director General and head of the Lagos campus and will become the first woman to lead the institution since its establishment in 1962. She will succeed the current Director General, Professor Isa Ayatu Chiroma, whose tenure expires on January 9, 2026 after 8 years of service. Titilayo Odushote obtained an LLB degree from Obafemi Awolowo University and was called to the bar in 1988. She holds an LLM from the same university, specializing in company and commercial law. She later obtained a PhD in law from the University of Surrey in the United Kingdom, with research interest in public law and the administration of justice. She joined the law school in 2001 as a lecturer. Since then, she has served in various capacities, including as head of the academic department, director of academics, and head of campus. Long stuff, but the important thing is that she's becoming the new Director General of the Nigerian Law School, Dr. Olugbemisola Titilayo Odushote. This is actually quite nice, and happy for her. People have also decided to put out some other information about her that you probably did not know before now, that she's a chartered tax practitioner. So she's an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. She's a notary public, and she's done research focusing on anti-corruption models and public law. All right, so hopefully this will help to produce brilliant lawyers, or more brilliant lawyers I should say, in the Nigerian law school. So this is quite nice, and I'm very, very happy with the news. The first female Director General of Nigerian Law School. And yeah, let's just leave it at that. I don't talk about the unnecessary controversy, but I think I just share the good news. So that's the good news. Moving on from that lovely news of a female becoming the new DG, there's another female here who has decided to tell us stuff about a new political journey. This time is Aisha Yesufu. And I'm going to read what she had to say, and then I'll let you listen to her. So this is from the Daily Post. If Obi emerges running mate, I will work against him, Aisha Yesufu vows. A chieftain of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, Aisha Yesufu, has warned that the 2023 presidential... There's a lot of errors. This first Alicia, then I'll have to insert the words they miss. A chieftain of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, Aisha Yesufu, has warned the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, not to deputize any presidential candidate in the 2027 election. In a video currently making the rounds on social media, Aisha is a popular socio-political activist, vowed that she would work against any presidential ticket that asks Obi as vice president. According to her, the former Anambra State governor is the best among the aspirants and should be given the presidential ticket. She said, quote, "I'm giving you people my word. If Peter Obi emerges as a running mate to anyone, I will work against that ticket." In my little capacity, I will work against them even if I don't support any other candidates. Why are we always asking the best to be the best? People don't talk about no. Why did they have a meeting when somebody was adjudged the best? I keep wondering where they get all these things from. Best in what? Based on what? Oh boy, I want to see if I can find you something on. I mean, there's a long. She wrote this long letter that she published earlier. And that's gotten people talking anyway. So maybe we'll read part of it later, if necessary. I don't even think, but we'll see. So she says, in my little capacity, I will work against them, even if I don't support any other candidates. Why are we always asking the best to be the second? End of quote. Daily Post reports that Obi, who joined the ADC, a party adopted by a coalition of opposition leaders plotting President Bola Tinubu's removal, is one of the aspirants eyeing the party's ticket. There are, however, indications that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar may emerge the flag bearer of the party and possibly pick Obi as deputy. So there's something confusing here. On the one hand, you're saying you have joined a new party. You're going to listen to her say it, by the way. You're saying you have joined a new party. On the other hand, you're saying that that party must field your candidate as the presidential candidate. Excuse me. And that if that man agrees to be vice, you're going to work against him or against the party. Did you really join the party? That's the question. But let's just take a listen to what she has to say, and then I'll read to you an exchange I had with someone on YouTube, the comment section, after putting out the video. And apparently this is how the mind of Obidients work, generally speaking. This is the rule. I've noticed it. I've noticed the pattern, but I'll read it out to you, and then you also judge if I'm right or wrong. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But first, let's listen to Aisha Yusufu. She was interviewed recently. Take a listen, please.
That in the past you said that there are personalities that you don't want to work with, and perhaps even your leader decided to rescue Nigeria. But the place that you're not in the party, and all kinds of characters before. How do you want to handle this?
I always say that politics is not a romantic affair. I'm not looking for people that we are in love. I'm in love with, or we love each other. We might not love each other. We might not like each other, but we have a singularity of purpose, and that's to give Nigeria good governance. And one of the things I want people to understand: these people we talk about or wherever, we did not go to meet them. They met us in opposition. We've been here, and I'm not going to clear the place where I've been holding government accountable because other people are joining me. They are welcome. Even whoever, those that are giving bad governance today, they want to come and join and begin to think of how we're all going to come together to give good governance. They are all welcome. This country is Nigeria. It's our country. And we are not allowing anybody to use any reverse psychology or mind engineering and say, oh, you said that you don't want to work with this thing. As long as they are the ones coming to us, we are not the ones who join them in the place where they're giving bad governance. For those people that you're talking about, they have seen the place where they are in. There's a place where they're giving Nigeria bad governance, insecurity, and what have you, lack of employment, and they've decided to atone for their sins. It's not for me to tell them whether we will be together or not be together. It's for them to do the best. One thing that I know, and I assure every Nigeria, is that wherever I am, it has to be about Nigeria and the betterment of the people of Nigeria.
Well, one thing I know, one thing I found, God will work it out. I like that part. One thing I know. So, apparently, all this structure of criminality, the people that constituted the structure of criminality they were talking about then, somehow are now becoming born again. Is God not wonderful? There's nothing God cannot do. God is a great God, and it's important to understand that just as it can change people's lives, it can turn anything around. But I don't know if Aisha Yusufu is, acting like God now. I don't know. But I want you to listen to where she said she would work against Peter Obi if he chooses to be vice to anybody. Take a listen to that. One thing I know. All right, here goes.
Conversation where everyone is sort of like, oh, where these people are like, you should run as vice. Me, and I'm giving you people my word now. Not of say I'm not talker. If Peter Obi is running with anyone, as the vice president of that, as the running mate to that person, me, Aisha Yusufu, in my little, I'm not saying that I have any influence, so I'm not saying that I'm one big anything. In my little capacity, I will work against that ticket. If that's the only thing, even if I don't support any other person, is to work against that whatever ticket, I will. Because what is this? Why are we always asking the best to be second? They've turned Peter Obi to the case of the way they put a woman, the way they put women in Nigeria. They will always put you in the deputy position, deputy whatever position. That's where they always put you. Nothing else. Deputy this, deputy that, running mate. I've been sure the other time I said to them, even if he's a goat that is running for president, you people will put Aisha Yusufu as vice. Because as far as you are concerned, as I'm a woman, automatically you see me as vice and nothing else. That cannot, we cannot have that situation. Peter will be right now. You talk about empathy, you talk about somebody who cares. So let me go back to the Mr. Peter Obi conversation where everyone is sort of like, oh, where these people are like, you should run as vice. Me, and I'm giving you people my word now. Not of say I'm not talker. If Peter Obi is running with anyone, as the vice president of that, as the running mate to that person, me, Aisha Yusufu, in my little, I'm not saying that I have any influence, so I'm not saying that I'm one big anything. In my little capacity, I will work against that ticket. If that's the only thing, even if I don't support any other person, is to work against that whatever ticket, I will. Because what is this? Why are we always asking the best to be second? They've turned Peter Obi to the case of the way they put a woman, the way they put women in Nigeria. They will always put you in the deputy position, deputy whatever position. That's where they always put you. Nothing else. Deputy this, deputy that, running mate. I've been sure the other time I said to them, even if he's a goat that is running for president, you people will put Aisha Yusufu as vice. Because as far as you are concerned, as I'm a woman, automatically you see me as vice and nothing else. That cannot, we cannot have that situation. Peter will be right now. You talk about empathy, you talk about somebody who cares. So
on the one hand, you've joined a party where you're saying that everybody there who did something bad in the past, they are essentially they are now forgiven, or maybe they are seeking whatever, some kind of penance, and now they've joined you. You've all joined ADC. You want to achieve whatever you want to achieve. Now, on the other hand, you're saying that in that party, your own candidate must be fielded as the presidential candidate. I had an exchange with someone on YouTube the other day, like I said earlier. So we put out a video a couple of days ago titled "Obedience Not in ADC Are Disobedient." The person who said that, by the way, that was Kenneth Okonkwo. He said that Obedients who are not in ADC are disobedient. So somebody wrote something in the comment section. His name is Austin Christopher. He says, Peter Obi did not form Obedient movement, neither does he own it. Obedient is an independently organic sprout that found the answer to their yearnings in Peter Obi's political ideology. Therefore, I don't know what the ideology is, but let's continue. Therefore, we will naturally give more life to ADC because of Obi's presence, just as we did for Labour while the going remains good. But if we suspect double card dealings, we will switch to our plan B. We don't know the details of the agreement with Obi, and we don't care to know. However, our focus is on the presidential ticket, no more, no less. So I responded with this. I said, fair enough, but what if he doesn't get the ticket? Austin Christopher responded, I have already mentioned that we will switch to our plan B. Then I answered, thanks for your response, but it seems you are inferring that Peter Obi not winning is tantamount to double card dealings. What if everything is done right and he still doesn't win? Surely his victory is not what determines the fairness of the process. So what if, having done everything right, Peter Obi still fails to clinch the ticket? What then? Then he says, in the second paragraph of my previous response, I would say that we don't know the agreement with Obi and that we don't care to know. However, that our focus is on the presidential ticket, no more, no less. Based on the above statement, therefore, we consider Peter Obi the right and only process, especially considering the regional presidential zoning between the North and the South. These people are very, very ignorant though. There is no regional presidential zoning in Nigeria's constitution. No. It's a gentleman agreement that started in the PDP, and APC also took it up. There's nothing like that in ADC, but let's continue, shall let's just read what he has to say. This is how most of them think. No logic, just bugberu. No more, no less. As though you are the one that brought everybody together. Someone says, no more, no less. Just dance to put the garbage. Concilium. You are in the spirit. You are in the spirit of Alhaji Sikiru and the barrister. No more, no less. Let's continue. It says, based on the above statements, therefore, we consider Peter Obi the right and only process, especially considering the regional presidential zoning between the North and the South. As a Northerner in ADC, Atiku's ambition should be suspended for Peter Obi for fairness and equity in respect to the remaining one term of 4 years of the Southern presidential zoning slot. Otherwise, our plan B train is steaming and ready to move. So I asked the question, are you sure this is the right way to negotiate? Your way or the I way? Interesting. Then the guy says to me, that's politics for you. Do you even know what that means? But anyway, he says that's politics for you. And it's anyways, as long as our ambition is secured. So I responded. I said, this is actually the path to unfulfilled ambitions. Politicians know this, and they know the game is not played the way you think. But good luck to you and the rest of your movement. And this is what he says to respond. He says, you are beginning to sound more like an anti-Obi and Obidients movement. Well, no one has the monopoly of the game of politics. So your conclusion of our strategy as a pathway to unfulfilled ambition is nothing but an expression of your fears, and we quite understand that. Just as your party, ADC, is a coalition, I'm not even an ADC member, but it's okay. Just as your party, ADC, is a coalition of persons from different parties, Obedient Movement is also a coalition of supporters from various parties for Obi and his political ideology alone, which suits us. We are just being fair enough to let ADC know that the members of our prestigious movement cuts across all political parties, and as such, Obi as an... God, I'm reading it out loud, so it's actually quite funny. We're just being fair enough to let ADC know that the members of our prestigious movement cuts across all political parties, and as such, Obi as an individual is our ideological vehicle. ADC has miscalculated in the assumption of the Obedience strength and strategy. You could see that we never raised our voice against or for Obi's defection from Labour to ADC, because we were never really members of Labour Party. Rather, we quietly queued behind him with our unyielding support for him alone, and not for users like ADC. The major advantage the ADC will continue to enjoy as long as Obi remains a member is the impact of our influence on their party. How many of you are remaining? And if they play their card well, the rest shall become history. So I answered with, okay. And that was, after this long Turenchi, the best thing just to say, okay. This is the way. If you think it's just one person, Aisha is one of the major people in the movement. She said the same thing. Patutomi is one of the major people with Peter Obi. He said the same thing. So this is not one lone person's opinion. This is like the strategy. If you make any other person the presidential candidate, we are working against that person. Peter Obi must be the party did not start. Think about it, guys. This is 2026. 3 years ago, he could have started a party. He could have started something. Do you know what it is to actually build? Forget being opportunistic. Think of building. That's what Asiwaju did. He was the only governor after the 2003 elections. He was the only governor in AD. The 5 other AD governors in the Southwest were taken out. There was an agreement with Obasanjo that boomeranged and then led to the loss of all AD seats in the Southwest. So, but one, right? So out of 6, you had 5 PDP and only 1 AD. The last man standing happened to be Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. AD. He rode that wave and then created AC. He didn't leave any party like somebody was saying the other day. He didn't have to leave. They created AC because AD died, essentially. Created AC. Then they wanted to take AC beyond one state and make it, bigger, regional, or maybe even national. Then they turned it to ACN. That's Action Congress of Nigeria, I think. Turned it to ACN. And when it was time to present a presidential candidate, he did not run. He had Nuri Badu as presidential candidate. The deputy was Fola Adeola. He didn't run. The next opportunity, he did not run. Atiku was on the ticket. By 2015, he didn't run either. ACN and CPC then came together and formed APC. He could have said, it's my structure now, and it's not structure of criminality like some people say, so I want to run. But he didn't do that. So what did they do? He allowed Buhari to run, suggested, a vice presidential candidate, and that was it. He didn't get in there. So I'm not even talking about SDP. Let's leave 1992, which is actually something important, but let's even just come to the Fourth Republic. From AD to AC to ACN to APC, and all these years, since 1999, you did not run until 2023. So, okay, you left governorship seat in 2007. So 2007 to 2023, that's 16 years of quietly building. And then he emerges as the presidential candidate against all odds. And you think you're going to be that kind of person by jumping from ship to ship. Which is why I know from what I just read right now, what Patutomi has said and what Aisha Yusufu has said, I will not be surprised if Peter Obi moves out of ADC in the next 3 to 6 months. It's not about sitting down to build. You may take another 3, 4, 8 years. Just build. If you can't stay in LP, build your own. But no, you won't build. You're looking for who is looking for a presidential candidate? I'm here. And you know the audacity. This thing where you say it's Peter Obi or no one else. Like, who are you? I know the funny thing. Obedient movement does not have the bites they had in 2023. They don't. We're going to talk about one of those things today. Many people are discovering that they were used and that the project was essentially an Igbo project. To the chagrin of most of them, because we all thought, I even thought in the beginning, to be honest, that it was a national project. I thought it was a national project. We're doing this because, and then there's an emotional beat to it, by the way, when it came to Igbo, like, okay, let Igbos also have a chance. I mean, in the beginning, that's what I thought. I was not part of the movement. I was just looking at it from outside. I was like, okay, maybe this is why they're doing what they're doing. I didn't see any sense in it because I looked at the person's antecedents. I don't know why the person would become Nigeria's president. But me, I didn't used to be an Obidient. I never was. But I was trying to understand where they were coming from. Let me tell you one funny example. Something that happened 2000, I think it was 2022. They were beginning to do all this APC, Obedient, whatever. And there was this exchange when someone asked a person who happens to be Yoruba and said, who are you supporting? And the person says APC. And the guy said, sorry, not APC at the time, but just the presidential candidate, Tinubu. And he said, you're a bigot. You're Yoruba, so you're supporting the Yoruba person. So I came up and I said, you asked that question. Your name is Emeka. You're supporting Peter Obi, and you have the guts to tell a buyer that is a bigot for supporting Tinubu. Do you not think that it is better for you to allow Femi, your friend, to criticize Bayo than for you, because you cannot use ethnicity or bigotry as the basis of condemning that guy if you're practicing the exact same thing? I did not know what was going to happen, that at the end of the day, some states in the southeast were going to give Peter Obi as high as 93% of their votes. I think the list was 87% of any of the states in the southeast. Aggregate going is like 88, between 88 and 93% was the aggregate of what Peter Obi got in his own region. I started noticing that these guys are not serious. But you see, a lot of people thought that, oh, you are just, you're not. I mean, I know some people that said to me, like, you're sounding a bit harsh. At the time, I wasn't even talking politics like that. I was just someone who would just feel like, let's use our common sense. Like, this doesn't make sense. I wonder what they was. I mean, I know what they're thinking about me right now, and I'm not even extreme. Can you imagine? Anyway, the point is, a lot of Yoruba people, middle belt people who joined the train to make him president. They have all been called names now. Why? Because some of them are beginning to question things. You know, it's a movement where you don't question anybody. It's like a cult. You don't question anybody, and you don't use your own brain. Like, you're not supposed to think. There's no independent thinking, no independent thought. You can't say, this is what I think about this. It has to be what we say, and you have to follow it. To go against it is to go against the wheel of progress, so to speak. You're becoming the clog in the wheel. So they have to maybe insult you, or say because you're Yoruba, or because you are Afonja, or you are Yariba. What else do they call those people? They just look for one name and insult them, forgetting that this guy won Lagos State. And did not win Lagos State just because of his Igbo people. He won Lagos State because other people also supported. So here's the point. The point is, whatever bite they had in 2023, they no longer have it. Many of the people are now withdrawing and saying, oh, so we're seeing it. What are you noticing right now? During the election from 2022 to 2023, almost every single IPOB member that had any form of clout became obedient. As soon as they lost election, they went back to becoming IPOB. They never stopped being IPOB, by the way. But we knew there was an IPOBian ministry, because even Peter Obi could never speak against IPOB. So whatever thing they had, the 6 million votes, there's no 6 million votes anyway, but they should go and try again, by the way. But nobody's going to give Obi 6 million votes based on what he had the last time, because a lot of people have discovered what it was. It was the fact that they were being used. Someone wrote their Obidients. I guess a lot of, and by the way, let me finish that thought. I guess that many of them were Obidients. That's a very good one. If you also notice, a lot of Yoruba people were in the obedient movement would never criticize IPOB. I've not seen one Yoruba person in the heat of that moment between 2022 and 2023 whoever spoke against IPOB. It was like the other arm of the movement. People are waking up now. So whatever is shocking that makes you think you can tell the governor, the president, or whoever, or sorry, you can tell the party ADC that your candidate must be the one on the ticket, or else that thing is gone. Someone says, Ẹkáàbọ, good evening, good to see you, sir. It says the movement never made any sense to me. It never did to me either. Oba 853 says ADC is the weapon fashioned against Peter Obi. We'll see how that goes. Then he says, which will never happen in Lagos again. No, it's not going to happen in Lagos again. It happened once, and I think that's about it. People are awake. They've noticed it, and by the way, if you think what I'm saying is harsh, just observe. I'm not even making anything up, and I'm going to read to you, which is one of the reasons for the title we have today: News, Azikiwe, Yoruba bots, and Obedience. I want to talk about the Yoruba bots today because people like say, what he reduce? And there's a group among the Yoruba bots who are making it very difficult for people like me to push back against extremists. I'll get to that in a bit. Give me a second. I want to find you that stuff. Let's start with a young man called Inyi. They are going to go to the young lady called Olamide. Those two trended on Twitter in the last few days. And for the most part, on one hand, it's a shame. On the other hand, there's a bit of relief. So let's start with Inyi. So, Inyi made a statement about Peter Obi criticizing the man, and Obidients, that's what you call them. I don't want to say Igbo. They are Igbo, by the way, but let's just stay with the movement. An obedient person sees his critique of Peter Obi, which he has since deleted, by the way, and then insults him based on its ethnicity. Oh, say it's Yoruba. Now, never mind that there was a time this same guy, he actually put out a statement on X saying, I want to be Igbo so bad. Actually, he used American accent. He said, I want to be Igbo so bad. The American is American. They get the point. I want to be Igbo so bad. And that was after somebody says Flavor needs to start a podcast. So he said, I want to be Igbo so bad. So this is a young guy who wants to be Igbo so bad. And he got his entire ethnicity insulted just because he dared to criticize Peter Obi. And they hopped on it and insulted him. Now, that has led to all kinds of things. And people are beginning to ask questions. And he also now got to a point. Let me see if I can find his stuff. Mbo, give me a second. Let me see if I can find you some of the things that he said in response. Okay, fine. I think I saw. If you're a young person, by the way, you know, all this, especially if you're young, and I get that feeling of you look at a person and because they've given you that sub story over and over again, you may even want to give them your place. When you are done, your story will be the story of Esau. Give me a second, please. I'll see if I can find you that. I think he has even deleted a lot of those things. But the point is they insulted him very well. But how did that become our topic for today? Because this is not the first time something like this is happening. Happy New Year to you, Ebenezer. Good to see you, sir. But the point is that they insulted him very well. Now, why am I talking about this? Because this is not the first time something like this happened. In the 1940s and 50s, there was a plan to essentially reduce the confidence of Yoruba people and make them see themselves as inferior to none other but the group that calls itself the superior race. So we're getting to the topic gradually. Today's topic will be news and topic. Then we'll bring people up. Then I'll now have the topic again. Let's start by reading something in the autobiography of Papa. And then I'll read some to you from another book. So you won't say it's just Awolowo that I'm reading. In case there's anybody like that here. I'm predicting what you would say. So let's start with the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. And this is what he said. Give me a second. I want to open a number of things at the same time. So there are two books, so I'm trying to open the two. Just give me a second, please. I apologize for the delay, but it's going to be worth it. I promise. Your name. How do you spell conscientious? Good. I have to use another book, please. I'm sorry, I thought I actually opened this thing before coming here, but for some weird reasons, I can't see the page anymore. So it might be no. But please, while we are waiting for the page, if you're on TikTok, please power tap. Let's power tap. Let's like the live and share as well. Thank you very much. This is crazy. You know what? We're going to come back to this. I'm going to find it later, but I think it's affecting me in a very funny way. 1 second. Korodin. We're there. One train. Oh, please. Thank you. Ah, no. Ah, ó mà ṣe o. Ọ̀tọ̀ ni nǹkan tí mò ń ṣe o. Abájọ tí ń ṣe rí nǹkan tí mo wà látàárọ̀. Don't worry, I found what I'm looking for. I found the material I'm looking for. So this makes it a lot easier. Okay, thank you very much. So let's I'll read a bit of it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read a bit of the autobiography. Then I will read another exchange of what's happening on Twitter. This time it's Olamide and the gang, not the singer, a girl named Olamide. And then we'll now go to the book about the Second World War, Nigerian politics. So we'll put it together. Well, let's start with Awolowo's autobiography. Please listen to this. All right. By the end of August 1940, who is speaking here? Papa? That's Chief Papa from Awolowo. By the end of August 1940, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group, to build up the Igbos as a master race, to magnify his own vaunted contributions to the nationalist struggles, to dwarf and misrepresent the achievements of his contemporaries, and to discount and nullify the humble but sterling quota which older politicians had made to the country's progress. Now, when you see this, it's easy, right? And I would understand if you say, oh, but that's our criticizing Azikiwe. But is this really about criticism or observation? Like, you act in such a way to dampen people's desire for ethnic pride, right? By telling them about how good Nigeria is and how we are all together. But as soon as those people come to your side, you then push up your own ethnicity as the model ethnicity for others, even though what you're putting up is actually inferior in quality to what you're trying to get down. And I'm not calling anybody inferior or superior, but you get the point. The point is this: if you are telling everybody you are superior to them or you are better than them, you're actually inferior in real fact, for the most part. Right? That's what history has taught us. If you have to tell everybody that you are better than all of them, in most cases, you're actually the inferior type, the inferior one. Now, one of the reasons for creating Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà was also because of something that Awolowo observed in the 1940s. I'm going to read out to you from his autobiography as well. It says here, it says about Yoruba now. It says the Yoruba were a highly progressive but badly disunited group. They paid lip service to a spiritual union and affinity in a common ancestor, Oduduwa. But in all their long history, they had waged wars against one another. When the Portuguese and the British had visited their coast in the course of their slave trade, the Yorubas had shown no qualm of conscience in conducting violent and merciless slave raids on one another. These intertribal wars and slave raids had come to an end under the so-called Pax Britannica, but the mutual hatred and acerbity which were attendant on them lingered. So there was an issue on ground already among Yoruba people before the 1940s. We fought many wars. Okay, you must have heard about the Imagbon War or that involved Ijebu, Egba, and Ibadan. As I've heard about Kiriji, we've fought a lot of wars, right, amongst ourselves. Okay. So that issue was on ground, but that was not all. By the 1930s to 1940s, we were exposed to another wahala that was also intent on destroying whatever little unity we had at the time. It says here, furthermore, the propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe was already having a deleterious effect on a once dynamic group. The Yorubas now indulge in mutual recrimination and condemnation. The younger elements thought that the Yorubas were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo people, and that whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. To cap it all, it was freely bandied about that the Yorubas were no longer capable of leadership in any sphere of life. I thought that it was in the best interest of Nigeria that the Yorubas should not be reduced to a state of impotence into which they were fast denigrating. They had something which was all their own to contribute to the common pool of Nigerian nationalism and nationhood. I decided therefore to do all in my power to infuse solidarity into the disjointed tribes that constitute the Yoruba ethnic group, to raise their morale, to rehabilitate their self-respect, and to imbue them with the confidence that they are an important factor in the forging of the federal unity of Nigeria. That was our. So there was already an intra-issue, and Yorubas have a fantastic saying, so we had our own issue on our own. If you don't have any cracks in the wall, these are not find a way in there. So it's clear that there were cracks, and our own cracks, goes back to all this bickering amongst ourselves. Now, by the 1930s, 40s, there's some form of, have semblance of unity, but not as it should be. But what Zik did was to push the propaganda to talk about the superiority of his own ethnicity in comparison with Yoruba people. But the truth of the matter is this, and this is the truth. If Zik could say what he said, I can tell you what I want to tell you right now. If you really want to compare, there's no basis for comparison. Actually, I just changed my mind not to tell you what I wanted to tell you. So this is the safer thing to say. When I say safe because I'm not intent on offending people. That's just the truth. Right? It's not because I could say it, but the goal is not to offend. The goal is just to make something very clear that there's no basis for comparison. But Zik put out the propaganda that ran for many years and affected a lot of Yoruba people. Many of them joining NCNC and having something called the Zikist movement, which is a precursor, and the new version of Zikist movement really is Obedient movement, where you have young people who, in the name of fighting for one Nigeria, would demean their own ethnicity. Because in fighting for the Igbo, and the funny thing is, they never fight for Hausa people. I don't know if you've noticed, all these tribalized Yoruba, but they never fight for the right of Hausa. They don't fight for Kanuri or Fulani. They only fight for Igbos. It's stupid. That the only way you can demonstrate that you are not tribalized, as though that word even makes any sense. But the only way you can show that is by pleasing one ethnic group. See, if your detribalization, which makes no sense, by the way, if it's something to even work with, it would be that it's something that when you hear about what happened in the North, you're actually speaking up for the Northerners. But no, you're going to join others to insult Northerners. And I'm not saying that they are saints. I'm sure they also have lots of faults, just like any other group. But the point is, you don't curse them. You don't try to shield them. You curse them out. But your friend with whom you're doing your detribalization, who is very, very tribalistic, by the way, whenever something happens in a space, you don't say anything, which is why Obidients did not ever speak against IPOB. Which is also why Peter Obi himself has never spoken against IPOB in recent times. The man went on TV to say, he had them as neighbors. They are his people. They are not bad people. He didn't even know why Nnamdi Kanu was still being held. What did he do? He just spoke vulgar words. Excuse me. According to him, just vulgar words. What did he do? He didn't really say anything. The only thing I consider vulgar was when he called Peter Obi a gay man. Maybe that's what they called vulgar. But I'm talking about someone talking about destroying Lagos, burning things down, cursing everybody out. And it's just vulgar. Assembling non-state actors in the name of security, call them ESN, arming them in your land, but you see nothing wrong with that. And if you're obedient as a Yoruba person, you also will not speak against it. Why? Because to speak against that is to essentially betray that movement, which is a movement built on appeasing folks from the southeast, which is why it doesn't make sense. But the point here, this is why history is important. What happened in the 1940s, is it happening again? Now, in case you were not here when I read those two things, those two references, I'm going to read them again, and then we'll now read something else. I'll now take you into another book. So let's start with this one, the last one I read. It says, the propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe, I'm reading the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. The propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe was already having a deleterious effect on a once dynamic group. The Yorubas now indulged in mutual recrimination and condemnation. The younger elements, just like now, the younger elements thought that the Yoruba were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo, and that whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. So if you say, oh, we used to be this, it doesn't matter, it's in the past. Because, and this is the sad part, his friend cannot point to anything in the past that he's proud of. Again, I'm not throwing shots, it's just reality. His friend cannot point to anything in the past that's actually glorious. And that's Nigeria's history, by the way. Many ethnic groups in Nigeria don't have anything glorious in their past. Not all. But you see, people know their place. That's a beautiful thing. For the most part, everybody just say, okay, it doesn't really matter. But the one who has nothing to essentially celebrate about their past is the one who tells everybody that he's better than everybody. And the Yoruba boy, who actually has something good to celebrate in his past, will have to dim his light just to make sure that the person beside him is comfortable. Why not shine your light so that you can inspire the person beside you? That's a sensible thing to do. You don't dim your light to make people comfortable. You shine your light to inspire them to also come up. Why would you want to go down to meet them where they are? But anyway, that happened and it's happening again. All right. Elements thought whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. To cap it all, it was freely bandied about that the Yorubas were no longer capable of leadership in any sphere of life. I thought that it was in the best interest of Nigeria that the Yorubas should not be reduced to a state of impotence into which they were fast degenerating. They had something which was all their own to contribute to the common pool of Nigerian nationalism and nationhood. That's the first one. I'll read the second one. In fact, it's more than, you know what? What's the propaganda I was talking about? Let's even talk about that before we read the other stuff I read earlier. What's the propaganda I was talking about? Let me read some of these things to you very quickly. We were used to HMs. HM, by the way, is Herbert Macaulay. We were used to, excuse me. We were used to HMs calling certain people imperialist agents. These people were rechristened by Dr. Azikiwe imperialist stooges, Uncle Toms, and Auntie Jemimas. So far, so good. But as time went on, he added to this list of Uncle Toms and so on the names of people whose patriotism and nationalism had never been in doubt. You only had to disagree with him on any issue, however minor, and you at once qualified to go on the blacklist. At the same time, he skillfully loaded himself to the very skies. Almost every day, there were letters to the editor published in the Pilot. That was Zeke's newspaper. There were letters to the editor published in the Pilot, eulogizing Zeke for doing this, that, and the other new and hitherto unknown and unheard of good things for Nigeria, nay, Mother Africa. Some of the writers acclaimed him as the Gandhi of Africa, whilst others declared that certain things that he had written or done had elexified them. These epistolary panegyrics were apparently written by persons who were dying to see their names in print. They got the desired publicity, and in due course, more and more of them competed with each other in the game of Gandhization of Zeke and elexification of themselves. Whatever anyone may say about Dr. Azikiwe, it should be readily considered to him that he was the first consummate propagandist that Nigeria produced. By the way, this book was written in 1960. Zeke had about 36 years. I think Zeke passed in 90, was it 94, 96? When did Zeke die? Anybody? 96. Zik had 36 years. By the way, he wrote his own autobiography in 1970. So as Awolowo published this book in 1960, Zik published his own in 1970. We have both by the grace of God. And the truth of the matter is that there's nothing he's going to say about the thing that was said about him. He was a propagandist. Even in the book, believe it or not, even in the book that Zik published, it was still putting propaganda there. I've read part of it here before. It's called My Odyssey. So he called him the first consummate propagandist in Nigeria. Let me read that part again. So whatever anyone may say about Dr. Azikiwe, it will be readily considered to him that he was the first consummate propagandist that Nigeria produced. And the reason I mentioned the fact that he died in 96 is to say that it's not like they said it after him. Unlike the books that this guy, what's this man's name? Mbadiwe was writing in 1989, 2 years after Awolowo died, to change history. Right? Or the ones that came much later. And the ones they were able to write in front of him while he was there, they will say something. They will, if you read this book, The Problem with Nigeria by Chinua Achebe, published in 1983, he criticized Awolowo, then he praised him, but the criticism is always about tribalism. And I think we should talk about this at some point today. Maybe after this first round, people will come up, then maybe we'll talk about that later. When people say Yoruba people are tribalists, they're tribalists. What are they really saying? What they are saying, let me tell you the summary of what they are saying. What they are saying basically is that you are stopping them from actualizing their dream in your land, and the dream is to take over your space. And the fact that you cannot allow them to do so makes you a tribalist. This coming from a people who would not allow that. When I get to that point, I will talk about it. Please remind me when we're done with this, and also remind me the old rebuttal they always produced about having a Fulani mayor in the East in the 1950s. Then I'll tell you what we had in the West and what happened to the Fulani mayor in the East. We'll do that later. Anyway, let's continue with this. Whatever anyone may say about Dr. Azikiwe, it will be readily considered to him that he was the first consummate propagandist that Nigeria produced. He observed neither modesty nor wreck in inflating his own ego or in deflating that of his opponent. In this connection, he is in the direct line of succession to Abat Macaulay, whom Dr. Azikiwe claimed to be his journalistic and political father. But like all sons who are worthy of their parentage, he is greater than his father in this particular respect. There's something else I'm looking for. Give me a second. Oh, brilliant. All right, I found it. If you were here, you'd like to hear that of Fulani Mayor. Oh yeah, we'll talk about him. That's Altine. That's his name, Altine. We'll talk about it later. Or is it Altine? But it's Altine. So, how did Azikiwe actually put out this? How did he come up with this? What's the best way to say it? How did he play the propaganda game? Now, I think I should open this book. First, let me say this. That Zik started his propaganda game in 1937. Right? He started in 1937, but he came out fully in 1938. Here as well. We're almost there, please. Okay, what's it? Found it. So we go to. I think you're going to like it. How did Azikiwe actually do his propaganda, and how did it affect young people in Yoruba land at the time? So let's go back just a bit. I'm still reading the autobiography of Papa. If you've been here before, if you've been here before, or if you've heard us talk about, what happened in the 1930s and 40s with Nigerian youth movement and so on and so forth. By the way, let me just ask in the comment section. how far back I have to go. If you were here when we discussed Nigerian youth movement and Zeke's role in the whole thing, and Awolowo's role as well, please just say yes in the comment section. If you were not here, say no. I just want to know how far back we need to go to be able to establish something here. Please help me in the comment section. And thank you, Mr. Oleko on YouTube and folks on TikTok as well with what you wrote. So a lot of people were here. Okay, I've seen a number of yeses on TikTok. Phenomenal Jimmy. Okay, we have some no's. Okay, we're not going to go all the way back. I'm just going to mention something to help us to give context what I'm about to provide context what I'm about to say. 1934. The Nigerian youth movement started as Lagos Youth Movement. It was created by Yoruba people primarily. And they did it because of what the British were trying to do in Nigeria at the time. And here's what happened. See, back in the day, the higher echelon of the civil service in Nigeria was filled with or packed with Oyinbo people. Not only whites, also white did there. So Nigerians who went abroad would get jobs, but there was a limit, there was a ceiling. Right? There was I don't know if it wasn't a glass ceiling. Excuse me, it wasn't a glass ceiling. It was a concrete ceiling. They knew that there was this thing. It was there. Everybody saw it. So the young people wanted to have a situation where Nigerians who went to school would be able to go up go up the ladder, right, in civil service. So they started going to school. Apparently, a school was now established in Yoruba land, in Lagos. Hello, Olali's Happy New Year. Thanks for joining. So a new school was established. The school was called Yaba Higher College. That's what we call Yaba Tech now. This was in the 1930s. Now, an issue now came up where they said the certificate that will be given to you on the completion of your course would be inferior to what you would have gotten if you had gone to the UK. So which means that no matter how long you spend in Yaba Tech, you never still go beyond that level, a particular level, right? And the young people started saying, no, they've got to do something about it. So they started something called Lagos Youth Movement that in 2 years' time became Nigerian Youth Movement in 1936. One of the major goals of Lagos Youth Movement was the Africanization of the civil service. The Africanization of the civil service. So they will push for anything that ensure that black people, they didn't even care about ethnicity, to be honest. And again, they were Yoruba. Let me also say this is the tribalized nonsense that people talk about. The people who began nationalism in Nigeria were Yoruba people. And when they started it, although they started from being culturally aware of being Yoruba, which is a product of their reaction to British missionaries, right? And they chose to be Christians, but to be Yoruba. They then morphed into something that recognizes the existence of Nigeria and started fighting for the independence of the country. And they were not doing it just for Yoruba people. They were doing it essentially for the whole country. So if you're looking for the tribalized nationalists and everything, that's who they were. And the movement they started in 1934, Nigerian Youth Movement, is the first nationalist organization created by Nigeria. Now, there were other organizations, right? There were other organizations before that. There was NNDP that was created in 1923 by Bad Macaulay, but that was a political party. But the movement that for young people gathering and saying that we're going to move and change things in this country, that was the first one. Zeke was not part of those who founded that group, right? The names that come to mind will be H.O. Davis, Samuel Akinsanya, Ernest Sikoli, Doherty. Those are the kind of names that will come to your mind. But the new Zeke, apparently, Zeke had been around 34 as well to speak. He was living in Ghana at the time. I was working as a reporter for a newspaper. So everybody knew about him, like he was a good speaker. He returns from Ghana in 1936. And at that moment, they made a mistake by allowing him to be part of not just the movement, but the executive, which was a huge mistake. I'll read something very quickly. This was when they began to fight. No, let's not start with fight. Let's provide context first. It was when I saw the people that said they had not heard us talk about this before. That's why I want to just quickly share this one before we go deep into it. Oh my God, I saw it just now. I saw the page now. Okay, very good. Okay. So I was opening the wrong page. Great. So please take a listen to this. All right. There was widespread resentment in political circles in Lagos and some circles in southern Nigeria. JT was in order to canalize this resentment. Okay, so they presented a united front to the Nigerian government in representing the JC Vaughan, Mr. Ernest Sikoli, Obasamla Kinsoya, and others. I remember the memorandum submitted by the Lagos Youth Movement. The movement's rejoinder to the government's reply, and Obasamla Kinsoya's open letter to Juse Mohammed Ali Effendi, who in his paper comment had criticized the leaders of the movement and had described them as half-baked critics. All these remonstrances were analytical. I'm trying to get somewhere. Okay. The Lagos Youth Movement, this is where we're going. The Lagos Youth Movement, on the other hand, continued in existence to initiate and conduct agitations against other unjust manifestations of British rule in Nigeria. In 1936, as a result of clamor from different parts of the country, the name Lagos Youth Movement was changed to the Nigerian Youth Movement. Okay, it must be pointed out that though the movement was originally Lagos in name, the matters which it handled were Nigerian in scope. In this connection, it must be borne in mind that up to 1936, Lagos and Calabar were the only towns in Nigeria where any group of people could presume to form and be members of political parties. The only organizations which were common in the hinterland were tribal or clan unions and literary societies. So we're going to jump to what happened after Zik came back to Nigeria. So I don't want to go through everything because of time. I think at this point I'll just be telling you because I know Silpejo. I can tell you, you would not mind if I just told you now, would you? All right, so let me just tell you the story. The point is, Z comes back to Nigeria in 1936. He joins the movement. Was it 36 or 37? Found it, I think. I'm very careful about dates, as you probably notice. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not mixing things up. Just give me a second. Why is that? Because if we discuss history without correct timelines, we would run into Wala down the line. Just give me a second, please. So one of the things with hard copy sometimes is ease of reference. Like if I was alone, I would have found this thing, but what if I told you I just found it? My show. And I opened that page exactly and I still didn't say it. Oh. Hey, I wasn't sure. Now I'm sure. It was 1937, not 36. And I was doubting myself because I knew there was an election in 1937. So I was like, or 1938. So if it was in 37 to 38, okay, so let's just read, okay? We are done with all the Turenchi now. All right, so this is a... It says here, when Dr. Azikiwe returned to Nigeria in 1937 with his ideas about new nationalism and new Africa, one of three choices was open to him for the concrete realization of those ideas. Now, guys, as I read this, just imagine that this is happening now, and then you look for the name of the person doing exactly what Azikiwe was doing in 1937. I'm telling you, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. This is the beauty of history. When Dr. Azikiwe returned to Nigeria in 1937 with his ideas about new nationalism and new Africa, one of three choices was open to him for the concrete realization of those ideas. Number one, to join the Nigerian National Democratic Party. What party was that? That was the party that Herbert Macaulay founded in 1923, NNDP. Number two, to expand the territorial influence and activities of that party to other parts of Nigeria outside Lagos. In other words, the seat of NNDP was Lagos. So Zik could join the party or decide to found or establish that party, maybe in Onitsha or wherever, to expand it beyond the base, the Lagos base. Second option. Number three, to enroll as a member of the Nigerian youth movement or to start a new political party or nationalist movement of his own. Sorry, number one is that he should join NNDP. He could join Lagos or spread it. Number two, to join NYM. Number three, to start a new political party. Now, he chose the second and became a member of the Nigerian youth movement. So you could join an NDP, stay in Lagos or start another party, start the party in another part of Nigeria. Number two, join the NYM. Why? Because time. By 1937, NYM had gone beyond just being a youth movement. Like I said, it started because of Yaba Tech, Yaba Higher College, they called it at the time. That was the reason that was the major reason Lagos youth movement started. And one of the things they wanted was the recognition of civil service and things like that. And there are many things. They have different charters. They have general charter, political charter, economic charter, social charter. But the particular point I'm using, Africanization of civil service, is important because of what Zik did much later. But we're going to get there very soon. Now, when they started, they were, essentially speaking up for young people, speaking up for Lagos, speaking up for, blacks, essentially. But by 1937, they had gone beyond just being a movement to becoming a political party. So that they were now putting people up to run for offices in Lagos Town Council and Lagos Legislative Council as well, against NNDP. Okay? So by 1937, they were like another, they were an alternative. Thank you very much. I am Jai Jai. Is it Jai Jai? Yeah. They were an alternative to the party that everybody knew, which was NNDP, the party that Herbert Macaulay founded, in Lagos. So Zik could join NNDP, he could join NYM, or he could build his own. He chose to join NYM, Nigerian Youth Movement. I wish he did not. I really wish he didn't. But let's continue. And here's what happened when he joined. He was at once elected into the Central Executive Committee of the movement. This is exactly what happened in recent times. And it's a lesson for all of us. Why did they make Zik a member of the Central Executive Committee of the movement immediately he joined? Because he was gifted. Zik could speak. He had a way with words. He was an orator. He was a fantastic speaker. And he had visited Lagos in the 30s, I think it was 34. In 1934, he had visited Lagos. He was 30 years old at the time. He had returned from the USA, where he was in Ghana, and then he visited Lagos and he spoke in different places, spoke in Itafaji, spoke in schools. Like I said earlier, Awolowo was in that place to record the event as a reporter for the paper that Ernest Ikoli was editing at the time. So everybody knew he was a great speaker. But there's an important lesson to learn from this. Talent is never enough. Just because a person has a gift does not mean you should make them your leader. When they get there, that thing they don't have will show up, because it doesn't. You cannot organize based on oratory. You cannot organize based on gift. You don't know how to. You cannot lead people based on the fact that you have a gift to speak. And Zik was a terrible leader, by the way. When we get there, we'll talk about it. But making him the member of the executive committee immediately he joined was actually a mistake. Well, let's go on. For a very short while, indeed, he proved to be an asset to the Nigerian youth movement. He was one of the famous volcanic nationalist quartet, Mr. Ekoli, that's an Ekoli, Obasamla Kisonya, Chief H.O. Davis, and Dr. Azikiwe. Whenever these four were billed to speak at any public meeting in Lagos, and it was always in Lagos, there was a tumultuous stampede to get a seat or a vantage place. The Nigerian youth movement was already popular with the masses before Dr. Azikiwe's return, but he brought with him a propaganda technique which was new in politics and journalism in Nigeria, and which further boosted the popularity of the Nigerian youth movement and disarrayed its opponents. Little wonder, therefore, that in opposition to the veteran NNDP, the NYM won in 1938, and in a resounding manner all the 3 Lagos seats in the Legislative Council, and all but one of the elective seats in the Lagos Town Council. But apart from the role which he played in these 2 electoral battles, it was Dr. Azikiwe who delivered a succession of blows now and subtle, then hard and heavy, but always accurate and harmful, which, aggravated by a series of bungling and mismanagement on the part of some of its leaders, brought about the fall and the ruin of the NYM. What's the strange here? The fact that he could speak meant he was an asset. So whenever they were campaigning, everybody wanted to hear him speak. So, and they were for, it wasn't just Zik, by the way. Like I said, the party side, the movement started in 1934 as Lagos Youth Movement, changed its name to Nigerian Youth Movement in 1936. Zik comes along in 1937, and because they already knew him as a good speaker, they made him one of the executive committee members. Now, here's the thing: there were 4 major speakers in the movement at the time. With the benefit of hindsight now, I think what they should have done is to make him a speaker, but never a leader. Let him look up to people in the movement. That he can talk does not mean you can lead, like I said earlier, but it bears repeating. Now, the 4 of them would go at different points to campaign or speak for the party. There was Ernest Ekoli, there was Obasamla Kisonya, there was Chief H.O. Davis, and then there was Zik. And because of the speaking and the oratory and stuff, Zik helped a lot, and is also acknowledged here. It helped the party win. There were 5 seats at the in the Lagos in the Legislative Council in Lagos at the time, and NYM won the 3 seats. And then Lagos Town Council, NYM won every seat but one. The only one they did not win was the one that Obasamla Kisonya lost. That was in 1938. But that's not today's topic. We're just going to move away from that. So all of this is good, right? But how do we know that Zik was using propaganda against Yoruba people, which is how we got into all of this in the first place? I thought you would now ask. Let's start with the... Okay, we could start with H.O. Davis, or we could start with Ademola Adetokunbo. Remember what I said earlier? That one of the major things that the Nigerian youth movement speaking very fast. One of the major things that the Nigerian youth movement was about at the time was the Africanization of the civil service, right? Now, the British government decided that they were going to make a Nigerian a magistrate. Our magistrates were all Oyinbo people. They're going to make one person in Nigerian a magistrate. Zik worked against it. Now, never mind that both of them were in NY, wanted Africanization. Zik still worked against that. So the question is this. By the way, how did they work against it? You see, in 1937, the paper is called West African Pilot. That paper, and I should say this, it's important to say it, when people talk about propaganda, people owning media and using the media, nobody used the media the way Zik did. And it was very popular. It was the Facebook of his days. It was so good that Daily Times, see, it was like, it was this place where Daily Times was, let me finish that thought. I'm saying many things at the same time. It was so good that even Daily Times lost some people to work for, that chose to work for Zik. Right? People would decide to leave their pensionable jobs to go and work in West African Pilot because it was glossy, it was lovely, it was popular, people were buying it. So it was very popular. So you could use it as an organ to do anything. So he had this power to mold public opinion, essentially. So let's read what he did with that power he had. He created more than a tremor throughout the rank and file of the movement when he wrote editorials in the Pilot calling upon the government not to appoint Sir Adetokunbo, then Mr. Demola, a magistrate, as was then strongly rumored. His ground for this action was that Sir Adetokunbo had not then had the statutory post call experience. When the appointment was in fact made, he criticized it on the same ground. This act of his was in diametric opposition to the movement's policy of Africanization of the civil service and the judiciary. And so this is where it began. I mean, this is not where it began. You could, we don't have the time, but I would have told you what he did with Mr. Bates against H.O. Davis and so on and so forth. But here's when for H.O. Davis, he's also Yoruba, and he attacked him and, used a word on that man. He called him a simpleton. But I would say it's not because he's Yoruba. Maybe it's just because he didn't like what he was doing. So I could excuse that. But this Adetokunbo Ademola, that was when I began to notice that, I think there's an ethnic coloration to this thing. If Adetokunbo Ademola had been Chukunonso Wabara, this man would have said yes. And as we read on, you're going to see how I came to that conclusion. By the end of August 1940, we read this earlier, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. I know the reason. I'll mention it later. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group. I'll tell you again. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group, to build up the Igbos as a master race, to magnify his own vaunted contributions to the nationalist struggles, to dwarf and misrepresent the achievements of his contemporaries, and to discount and nullify the humble but sterling quota which older politicians had made to the country's progress. Other incidents which happened thereafter merely went to strengthen my beliefs. Many things happen, but most of those things are national in scope. So, for instance, when he worked against the movement, and they had a meeting and invited him, big mistake, and they told everybody not to talk about it. He went to publish it the next morning, and the headline was "The youth movement taught us." But I want to focus on what they did to Yoruba people. So let's move very quickly. How do we ascertain if our law was just being Yoruba and maybe just hating on an Igbo man, or if he was actually talking based on observation? Let's start. We started with already with Adetokunbo Ademola, what he did to block the man's chance to becoming a magistrate. And I think it was because of his ethnicity. So much for being the sake of Africa, but we'll get there in a bit. There was a football match. I've talked about it here before. You probably have heard me say it. There was a football match in 1940. It was called Football Iliad. Let me read to you what happened. An article written by Zik himself, published on the front page of the Pilot, and entitled Football Iliad, 1940 edition, shocked many people. It was a big step forward in an insidious campaign which had gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the Pilot. Hold up. If it has gone on for more than 2 years, that means it started in 1938. And that would mean that all that Nigeria had in terms of respite was 1 year. Zik arrives in 1937, joins NYM, starts his newspaper, worked with NYM to win the elections 37 to 38, and from 38 he began to push Igbo supremacist ideas. And by 1940, that come to a head where he was now using a football match between secondary school kids to push Igbo supremacy. I know where we started. We started from Twitter. We're going back to it later. We started with X. What is happening next? We're going back there. That thing is also happening now. That's why we're discussing it, okay? There's no hate for anybody. This is what Zik did. An article written by Zeke himself, published on the front page of the Pilot and entitled Football Iliad 1940 edition, shocked many people. It was a big step forward in an insidious campaign which had gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the Pilot. A football team composed of students of the Christ the King's College, Onitsha, came to Lagos to play a win-the-war football match against St. Gregory's College. Up Gregs. The CKC team from Onitsha defeated St. Gregory's team. I didn't go there, by the way. I went to Queen Ibadan. The CKC team from Onitsha defeated St. Gregory's team by 5-4. To the ordinary man in the street, let alone the highly sophisticated elements, there was nothing extraordinary or unusual in one school or college defeating another in a game of soccer. But not so with Dr. Azikiwe. He saw in the sporting exploits and triumph of the team from Onitsha the inherent superiority of the Easterners over their opponents, and he went to very great pains to establish this fact by means of careful choice of words and emphasis. These extracts from the article are relevant. This is what Zeke wrote in his newspaper. The match, again, remember, the match was between two secondary schools, one from Onitsha, the other one in Lagos. This was Zeke said. And then to think of the great combination of the Spartan heroes who crossed the lordly Niger, journeyed through the good earth of Benin, hurried across the domains of the Oshemawe of Ondo, of the Atanla of Owo, of the Owa of Ilesha, of the Ooni of Ife, of the Alake of Abeokuta, in the invasion of these islands. Who but heroes of mighty brawn and exceptionally developed brain would have dared to make this invasion and to succeed in carrying to their river Niger home the golden fleece of intercollegiate soccer championship of the eastern and western provinces? Yet they came to Lagos. They saw the irresistible defense put up by their opponents, and they conquered impressively, convincingly, and were graceful even in victory. Could their achievement be paralleled? Would it not be better for me to leave the answer to the laps of the gods? Kilagbe, Kileju. Two teams of young people played, and you are saying that one has exceptionally developed brains. So apparently, the one that was Lagos was mostly Yoruba, but there were other ethnicities as well, because we're talking about St. Gregory's. So you had different ethnicities mixed with Lagos, mixed with Yoruba people in that Lagos school. So apparently every other group had inferior quality of brains, because this ones they were heroes of mighty brawn and exceptionally developed brains, and they invaded these islands. You would think it was a war. It was a football match between secondary school boys or teams. Does this make it ethnic? Maybe not, until you see what happened a few months later. On 24th August 1940, however, the same CKC team played in Ibadan against the Olubadan 11 in another win-the-war match. The CKC were beaten 3-2 by the Olubadan 11, which were an undiluted Yoruba team. Apart from sending the news to the Daily Service myself, that's Awo, I also saw to it that it was wired to the Pilot. Daily Service was a newspaper in Lagos, just like Pilot. It was after there had been clamors in the Daily Service in form of letters to the editor that the news of this Ibadan match was published some 2 weeks later in the Pilot. Even then, it was a small item on the back page, and it was explained in it that the CKC team were already tired, and that some of them were in fact limping before they went into the field against Olubadan 11. This was, of course, untrue. Think about it for a second. This is 1940. At this point, Zeke was 36 years old, so he's not a child. He was the editor and publisher of a newspaper. He was influential. And what to do with his influence was to push his ethnicity as better than others. So when you see people going around the place these days telling you, we are better than you, although it's ridiculous to say it, but it's coming from somewhere. All right? You have to make yourself seem better than everybody for you to find that's the only place you can find a modicum of self-respect. It has to be that you are it's not even self-respect. It has to be based on comparison. That's the place where you can find, there's a word I'm looking for, a sense of worth. You can only find a sense of worth from the product of your comparison, and it doesn't have to be the real product. It just has to be something that you think should be the product. I am better than you, therefore I'm somebody. Now, here's the case. Here's the thing that happened. Two teams played. Igbos, the guys from Onitsha lost, won 5-4. It wasn't 5-0. It was not like Nigeria Mozambique the other day 4-0. No, it wasn't. It was 5-4. 5-4. And then you said they had mighty bronze, they had exceptionally developed brains, they were better than everybody. A couple of months later, they lost to folks in Ibadan 3-2. Again, that's not supposed to be a big deal. But for you, since you wrote about how they were so great, you have to announce this. You have to report this issue, this match as well. They were there. So, by the way, when we get to what happened in 1951, people are saying that why didn't they allow Zik to become Kini? Because he has been pushing the idea of the supremacy of the Igbo people since 1938. 13 whole years before he decided to run to be a member of the parliament in Ibadan, in Western region. And guess what? Yoruba people still voted for him. We'll talk about that later. But just to give you an idea that from 1938, Zik had been finding different ways to chip at the self-esteem of Yoruba people. And when you speak against it, you'll be like, why do you say like that? It didn't really happen like that now. Are you calling him a tribal? You are a tribalist. So, let's continue. I said before, so by the way, the one where Ibadan people beat them, they didn't publish that until another 2 weeks. And when they published it, a newspaper was explaining why Igbo boys lost a match. Why? Oh, they lost it because they had to travel very long distance. I mean, any sane person will know that you get to Ibadan before you get to Lagos, if you are coming from Onitsha. So the idea that they were not tired when they beat people in Lagos, but they're not tired when they go to Ibadan is because it's preposterous. But that wouldn't matter if you're driving propaganda. Anyway, I said before that the CKC episode was a big step forward in an insidious campaign which had gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the pilot. 1 or 2 more instances will be given. By the time the pilot had published for a year, that's from 1937 to 1938, an important feature of the paper had become manifest. The Igbos in particular were given inordinate publicity on the pages of the paper. Perhaps this was as it should be. The Igbo had never a class of the Igbos publicized in the pilot ever had a share of publicity in any paper either. In those days, one had to be an outstanding politician, a big shot in society, or a well-connected person for one's name to appear in the Nigerian Daily Times, Nigerian Daily Telegraph, and Lagos Daily News. Of course, if you had a friend working in the news or composing section of a paper, no matter who you were, you might be slipped in. Names of people like myself appeared in papers simply because we were agitators or freelance journalists. All the same, it was generally agreed that the Igbos needed all the boosting they could get. But Dr. Azikiwe went about it in a manner which disgusted those of us who were used to describing Nigeria. I'll tell that again. But Dr. Azikiwe went about it. Let me just take it back a little. All the same, it was generally agreed that the Igbos needed all the boosting they could get. But Dr. Azikiwe went about it in a manner which disgusted those of us who were used to describing citizens of Nigeria as Nigerians or Africans, and regarding their achievements as reflecting credit on Nigeria, indeed Africa as a whole. What's he saying here? 1 second, please. This is what he's saying. See, before Zik, this detribalization nonsense that people are talking about now, it's an inferior alternative to what our fathers did in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They refer to themselves as Nigerians. If a Yoruba man achieved something, they'll say, oh, see the first African to do something, or the King Kong African has done something. So they were very African in their thinking. When Zik came, Zik changed the dynamics. Until Zik, folks who publish papers would acknowledge people's progress or people's successes and achievements, but they will credit the race. So it's not be so much about the ethnicity, but the fact that you are African, or at least also okay, you are Nigerian. But Zik changed all that. The following are typical of the titles on front page newspaper items. I'll say that again. The following are typical of the titles of front page news items and of editorial articles in the pilot. Number 1, Igbo young man to sail to UK is the heading of a front page story and picture on September 23, 1938. The young man is Mr. Jajawachukwu, now Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives. And that was the same man who said, the first man who said Lagos was no man's land in 1947, by the way. It's not in the book, but I'm adding that bit. So, for the first time, we just opened paper in 1938 and we saw Igbo man is traveling. I'm like, wait though. I thought we were all Nigerians and Africans. Number 2, 14th West African student, 10th Nigerian, 8th Igbo in USA. Another front page story on January 28, 1939. The 8th Igbo is Mr. Nwafori. Igbo medical student passes exam in first class honors. That's another front page story on June 26, 1940 of the brilliant success of Dr. S.O. Egwatu. Then the editorials have some titles. Number 4, one of them is a model union in praise of the Ibibio State Union. The model union, of course, will be Igbo Union. Number 2, 1 year ago, celebrating the first anniversary of the call to the bar of the first Igbo lawyer in the person of Mr. Justice Louis Mbanefo, now Chief Justice of the Eastern Region High Court. And the third one, the Igbo are coming, December 31, 1938. The very title is sufficiently indicative of the contents. The Igbo are coming. Now, we didn't think of in that manner as nationalists. And here's what I've found as a recurring pattern. So the nationalists, a group comes, inserts tribalism and ethnic identity, which is their right, by the way. Everybody now begins to assert who they are. The group now comes and says everybody is a tribalist. They have to be detribalized now in order to prove that they are Nigerians. Just the same way, one group will introduce unitary system into Nigeria, destroy, and then once everybody now goes on with the unitary system, then they come back later and say the best thing that Nigeria needs is a federal system. In the two instances, they are Igbos. So the Igbo introduced ethnic identity into conversations about achievements in Nigeria, whether it's in the academia or in politics. They became more assertive, right, of the ethnic identity of Igbo people. When others now say it now, like what happened earlier today, the woman whose story I read earlier, that became the first DG of Nigerian Law School. A lot of people now say, oh, she's Yoruba, she's Yoruba. I say, oh, why are you saying she's Yoruba? Why can't you just say she's Nigerian? Well, we've been learning since 1938. By now, we must have graduated. We must have, if you go to school since 1938, you don't graduate. If you don't graduate now. So essentially, we learned how people should identify themselves, which is the right thing, by the way. I see nothing wrong with it. It's just that once it doesn't favor you, that's when you remember that you are one Nigeria. Just like what happened with Iran and the Unity Decree, with the Igbos that supported him, and all of them that supported him were Igbos, by the way. And when the going was good, it was a perfect thing. When everything now went down, it was like, oh, it's wrong. Let's go back to what we used to have before. That was better than what we had. As though you're not the ones responsible for the destruction of the first thing we had in the first place. Anyway, let's continue. So when you see all of that, you already notice that it's like a man is intentionally trying to push his ethnicity above every other group while telling everybody to be one Nigeria and to be more nationalistic and patriotic. But is in his own mind, your patriotism must not question the assertion that Igbos are doing this and that. But for you, you must say it's Nigeria. Interestingly, I should quickly read this one so we can move on. When an Igbo did or was about to do something praiseworthy, it was invariably given a 2-column headline and report in the pilot, and was always described by his ethnic origin in the headlines. But when the PhD degree of London University, indeed of any university for that matter, was conferred on the first Nigerian ever, the historic news was given a small single column space in the pilot, and the headline read, Nigerian economist passes PhD London. If the Igbo enjoy something, be like, Igbo did this. The Igbo are coming. Yes, and it will be 2-column headline. But in this case, we have a 1-column headline, and all we see there is that Nigerian economist passes PhD London. Anybody would guess what ethnicity that person is? Can you guess in the comment section? Nigerian economist passes PhD London. Guess the Nigerian's ethnicity, please, in the comment section. You want us to interact a bit. Can you guess? Take a guess. It's definitely not Igbo. That's your cue. Yoruba. Thank you. Yoruba. The scholar concerned was Dr. Fadipe, a Yoruba. As late as 1945, 2 Nigerian law students of Cambridge University, one Yoruba and one Igbo, passed the law tripos examination. The Yoruba passed with second-class honors, upper division, and the Igbo also passed with second-class honors, but in the lower division. The latter, that's the one that had lower 2-2. By the way, it's good though. 2-1 is good, 2-2 is good. That's no problem. But the Yoruba had 2-1, the Igbo had 2-2. The one with 2-2 got front page publicity in the pilot, but the one with 2-1 got a small space given to him on the back page a few days after the report of his Igbo colleague had appeared. So the one that had 2-2, should be, I mean, celebrate both, by the way, but the point is, just because that person is from your ethnicity, even if they have had the lower degree, they'll be on the front page. This is propaganda at its best. And what it does to you as a Yoruba person is that you are engineered. Even if you are better, for the most part, the Yorubas were, even if you are better, the paper that was happening, that was given Nigerian Daily Telegraph, Lagos, the West African Pilot was the go-to newspaper at the time. So you are being told that this popular paper only pushes Igbo achievements. As a Yoruba person, you begin to wonder, not about your achievement now, but about the fact that, please, can anybody hear me? Someone says my voice is breaking. Please, can you hear me? If you're just joining us, please just hold on. After a while, it will work, but I don't think my voice is breaking. Anyway, what was I saying? It's okay now. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I didn't even do anything. I think these mic needs are bro. No, it's not network, it's the mic. You don't share what mic. Or maybe it's the cable or something. I will see some. I'll check it out later. Where was I? If you're a Yoruba person and you discover that no matter what you score, no matter what you achieve, you will never be on the front page of the happening media outlet. Like, you will never be seen there. It does something to you as a person. It's not about the fact that you cannot achieve what you're achieving. It makes you begin to question your fellow Yoruba people. How come their own paper is not raining? Right? The paper was working, which was also one of the major reasons for the fight between Zik and NYM. I might as well just tell you now. You see, back in the day, the Nigerian youth movement had a newspaper. It was called The Service. But when Zik came in 1937, like I said earlier, his paper became very popular. So they were like, you know what? Instead of, running The Service, why not just use Zik's newspaper? Because apparently it's very popular. Everybody reads it, right? It doesn't really hurt. And the man is a member of the movement. Let's just use his paper. Big mistake. The big mistake was not that they used his paper. The big mistake was that they were using it exclusively. It was popular, so they were using it exclusively and decided to stop publishing their own paper. Somewhere down the line, they were like, you know what, at this point, it might be better for us to resuscitate the service so that whatever we want to do as a movement, we can use our own paper to push it. And then they said we're going to have to raise money for it, so they took HOD. They told HODs was the one who traveled around Nigeria to sell what you call shares or whatever to raise money, essentially. Zik attacked him like crazy. We're going to have to want to move from your paper back to what we used to be so that we can have something that belongs to us. The reason Zik began to fight NYM was because of money. It was because they were going to stop using his paper. He got very angry and began to attack them. He attacked H.O. Davis, attacked all their members. This went on until 1940 October. But that's not this topic. The point is just that from the point or the moment when they began to say, oh, we're going to have to resuscitate our own newspaper as a movement, that was when he got really, really mad with them. And he talked about it much later, but he was saying that he was angry with some people, not with the movement. But he was angry with some people, but was destroying the movement, and eventually destroyed the movement, by the way. But that's talk for another day. Let's just get back to this. So what we've discussed so far is that this man would push ethnic ideology or ethnic ideas and talk about the essentially the greatness of Igbo people, right? While at the same time trying to downplay the achievements of other people. So even if you had a tutu, as long as you were Igbo, you had front page. If you had you can have first class and become a professor after your first degree, there's just one place to corner. Just even this one, that they put at the back page, that's after 2 weeks. The people saying, this person also went now. They came back from Cambridge, but that person. So if you live in that kind of space, it's social engineering, right? This is the most popular newspaper at the time. People were not really listening to radio as much, or there was no television. The primary thing was newspaper, and this was the most popular one, and was churning out the idea that Igbos were better, Igbos were better, Igbos were better. Someone says, Robodo says Obi does the same thing. Obi would never criticize anything Igbo. It's when something happens in Yoruba land or in the north, that's when he begins to wax lyrical. That's when he will regain his voice. Just interesting characters. And then when you speak against it, you are the tribalist, you are the bigot. Apart from failing to give publicity to the achievements, okay, let me go back just a bit. The latter got front page publicity in the pilot, but the former got a small space given to him on the back page a few days after the report of his Igbo colleague had appeared. As for outstanding Yoruba public men, if Yoruba men were outstanding, the public men, they all were dubbed as imperialist stooges and Uncle Toms. You are Yoruba, and you are, let's say you are H.O. Davis, you are a simpleton. Zik said it, by the way, in his paper. Called H.O. Davis simpleton. Any major Yoruba politician is Uncle Tom. Definitely must be working for the imperialists. So they call them imperialist stooges. Apart from failing to give publicity to the achievements of the Yoruba and holding their public men to obloquy, the pilot always made sure that all their misdoings received due publicity. As many of the unsavory aspects of Yoruba life as its news gatherers could muster received banner headlines in the pilot. There's Yoruba, there's Osh Puppy, front page. One Yoruba person went to, there are bad people in every ethnicity, right? A Yoruba person, robbed somebody, front page. There's Osh Puppy, scam, front page. Front page. As long as Yoruba, it has to be front page. If it's Igbo, there'll be explanation, by the way. What you see being done on social media right now, it did not start today. Just remember, what I'm reading now started in 1938. Actually, 1937, if you really want to be serious about 1937. But that was when he started. But people didn't notice until around 38. Like, wait, there's a pattern here. And it went on for 11 years before your Bible were like, wait, this one, we've got to speak up. And the only thing that made them speak up was that Zik moved to the point where he was attacking the ethnicity as a whole. And he did that by attacking the first organization that brought them together, Egbe Modujua. We'll get to that later. So, as many of the unsavory aspects of Yoruba life as its news gatherers could muster received banner headlines in the pilot. In contrast to this, care was taken to ensure that any misdoing of the Igbo was kept out of the newspaper. Whenever a non-Yoruba name was mentioned in the pilot in connection with a trial or conviction for a crime, meticulous care was taken to indicate the tribe of the accused or convicted person. Not many people then and now could differentiate an Igbo name from an Edo name or Ijaw name, for instance. So in order to make assurance doubly sure that the reading public were not misled into thinking that an Igbo man had been mixed up into any reported ugly business, a non-Yoruba name was invariably correctly identified by its tribal origin. What does that mean? So, Adekunle Kiniko did something, put it on front page. Oh, Benga, you know that's Yoruba. So let's say your name is now Ogogo. You see, this happens all over Nigeria. If you're in the north, if your name is not Chuku or anything, you're Yoruba, straight up. If you're in the east, if your name is not Abdul, you are Yoruba. If you're in the west, if your name is not Abdul, you are Igbo. So we have this broad way of generalizing because it's wrong, by the way, but it's because when the regions were created in 1947, or even the provinces in 1939, they were done with one ethnicity being the major ethnic group in the regions, right? And so most people will just say things like, oh, everybody in this particular place must be Igbo. Everybody here is. Some people still think everybody in the north is Hausa, even though Hausa has more than 100 ethnicities in terms of the groups. So if your name was Ogogo or your name was Fiberesima, a Yoruba person might think you are Igbo. So what these guys will do, what pilot will do, is that they will write Fiberesima, they will not write Ijaw, so that you don't go and think they are Igbo. So what does that do to a young Yoruba person? He looks through his paper, all he sees are, and this is the most popular paper, remember, all he sees are Adekunle, Gbenga, Olufemi, Olushola in court for this, for that, and then he sees Fiberesima on Kosi bracket Ijaw, he sees Omorege in bracket Edo. He doesn't see any Igbo person there. In his mind, these people don't do anything wrong. This is the model ethnicity. These people are better than us. Look at all the nonsense that my people are doing. We are stealing, we are doing this. And is it true that your Yoruba people are doing all those things, that scamming? Oh yes, it's true, because I saw it in the paper. Because, okay, even today, most of us don't consume traditional media. We don't listen to news on. When was the last time we watched NT? I can't remember. I can't even remember the year, not the day. Let's watch NTA. So you have this insidious campaign, right? The idea basically is to show the worst of your people. So you show the worst of Yoruba, but the best of yours. So if you buy West African Pilot, and on the front page you see Chukudi, unique. I'm just making things up, by the way. This is fictional. Chukudi on unique, Cambridge University, front page, 2 columns, and then beside it you see Adekunle Kiniko arranged in court for petty thief. What will come to your mind as a person? In your mind you're like, ó ṣe jẹ́ pé gbogbo àti kó kan Yorùbá yìí wọ́n máa ń jalè ṣáá ni. The person who taught Nigerian propaganda was Zik. Now, that thing, one of the products of that stuff, number one, of course, is that the Igbos will be very proud, which is normal. What's understandable is the effect on Yoruba people, especially the youth. They will begin to look down on themselves, regardless of what they have. They will think they are less. Zeke did that. That's why I don't believe in Zik of Africa. There's nothing like that. There was no one like that. It's just branding. So not many people then and now, okay, so it says here, not many people then and now could differentiate an Igbo name from an Edo name or Ijaw name, for instance. So in order to make assurance doubly sure that the reading public were not misled into thinking that an Igbo man had been mixed up in any reported ugly business, a non-Yoruba name was invariably correctly identified by its tribal origin. The examples given in this chapter are only a small fraction of such like numerous acts perpetrated by Dr. Azikiwe. A stage was reached when even his apologists felt very strongly that for over 2 years past, Dr. Azikiwe had been consistently conducting himself in a manner which was not only anti-party and contrary to the noble ideals of the movement, but also unnationalistic. I'll take that again. A stage was reached when even his apologists felt very strongly that for over 2 years past, Dr. Azikiwe had been consistently conducting himself in a manner which was not only anti-party and contrary to the noble ideals of the movement, but also nationalist, tribalistic, and egocentric. And so they had a meeting that held in September, and another one that held in October. So there was a meeting, a Central Executive Committee meeting was held in September of 1940, and they had a meeting to invite Azikiwe to another Central Executive Committee on Monday, 7th October 1940. And it was in that meeting, I'm not going to read everything that happened in that meeting, I just want to read something that Baba Iso, Chief Odutola, it was Yogbeni Oja in Ijebu. This is what Chief Odutola said. It's very important, and please take a listen to this. I'm going to leave this book and go back to where we started very soon. This is what he said. All the confusion and tribal hates that were rearing their heads in the country were the product of Dr. Azikiwe's New Africa. During the days of our old Africa, the Igbos and Yorubas lived together as Nigerians. It seems to me, therefore, that the remedy for the present troubles is this. Azikiwe has brought his New Africa from America. He should return it there either by post or by taking it back there personally. If need be, his passage to and fro should be paid by the movement. But mark this, he concluded, unless this Azikiwe's brand of New Africa is done away with, there will be no harmony in this country. I wasn't planning to do this, but I think it's going to help us. I'm going to read some to you from the book that Zik published in 1934. His very first book. It's titled The Renaissance Africa. And I want you to compare what he said in there and all the things that we've read together from his own newspaper. And then you ask yourself, if following Zik doesn't mean that a person doesn't really know how to think, because to be everybody handicap. Let me read some to you here. Zik said in this book, The Renaissance Africa, he said, let the Renaissance African take upon himself the burden of looking at his fellow African as a man, nothing more, nothing less. Tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. These lead ultimately to vanity and superciliousness and disharmony. A regenerated social order must come. Fanti or Ga, Temne or Mende, Yoruba or Igbo, Bantu or Tuareg, Bubi or Hausa, Jollof or Kru, all are Africans, all are human beings. A man's a man for that. That was Zik. Bubi, Igbo, Bantu, Tuareg, we are all Africans. If you heard that, you'll be shouting, yay, Zik of Africa, until get here. If you were shouting Zik of Africa, they don't get you with that. Thank you very much. oh, Zik of Africa is saying that all of us should unite, because tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. We don't want to have tribal, this is just too low for us. Let's be African. We are human beings. That was in 1934. By 1937, 3 years, not 30. By 1937, he began to drop the hint. People did not get until 1938. By 38, what did you start noticing? The Igbo man to first Igbo man to do this. Igbo man did this. Igbo that. Well, the one that said we are all African, that we should forget who we are, forget these tribal idiosyncrasies. We are all. See, let me read it again, just in case you didn't hear. We have to be Renaissance, by the way. Let the Renaissance Africa take upon himself the burden of looking at his fellow African as a man. Nothing more, nothing less. Tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. These lead ultimately to vanity and superciliousness and disharmony. A regenerated social order must come. Fanti or Ga, Temne or Mende, Yoruba or Igbo, Bantu or Tuareg, Bubi or Hausa, Jollof or Kru, all are Africans, all are human beings. A man's a man for that. That was his idea of New Africa. And so when you read Chief Odutola saying that this New Africa that is brought is the reason for the problem in Nigeria, you understand what he's saying now? The idea of New Africa that Zik was banding about at the time was to unite everybody, but to lift up one group. Unite all the groups. Did you just mention Jollof? Jollof, yes, Jollof is like Wolof. That's Senegal. By the way, you should know that Jollof rice is actually from the word Jollof is a way of pronouncing Wolof. Wolof is an ethnic group in Senegal, and this was written in 1934. So the word Jollof has been not rice. The people, right? So we called Wolof Jollof, and the rice is from them, by the way, before we then took it over and started shouting Nigeria or Ghana. But yeah, that's why I mentioned Jollof. So I was just responding to someone in the comment section. Where was I? Great. So, if you're saying all of us are one, we're all Africans, and then suddenly you begin to prop up your own ethnicity above all, does that not suggest that your idea of the New African is a situation where everybody will be subservient to your own ethnic group? And nothing makes it clearer than what Zik said in 1949. I'm going to read that for you very quickly. So it gives you an idea what the New Africa is. So first, let me read what Odutola said again, and then we'll read what Zik said in 1949, and then you can put it together. And then I'll tell you one interesting thing I discovered with that particular speech. So back to Odutola here. He says here, during the days of our old Africa, in fact, let me go back a bit. It says, all the confusion and tribal hate that were rearing their heads in the country were the product of Dr. Azikiwe's New Africa. During the days of our old Africa, quote unquote, Chief Odutola said, the Igbos and Yorubas lived together as Nigerians. It seems to me, therefore, that the remedy for the present troubles is this. Azikiwe has brought his New Africa from America. Taking it back there personally. By the way, this was at the meeting that was held in October of 1940, when the NYM, where they should have actually just expelled him. They made a mistake, they didn't expel him. That was a great mistake, because eventually they destroyed our party the next year. But let's just go on. He says here, Zik should return it there either by post or by taking it back there personally. If need be, his passage to and fro should be paid by the movement. But mark this, unless this Azikiwe's brand of New Africa is done away with, there will be no harmony in this country. Of New Africa that Azikiwe brought has not gone away. That's the reason people behave the way they behave from the Southeast. the Igbos were not like that. They were not like that. At least not in the Southwest. They would only do that when they considered the majority, like what they did in the South. But in the Southwest, one more year until Zik came along. And what Zik did, for some weird reason, was to make them feel like they're better than everybody, and at the same time, make others feel that they are less than the Igbos, which is just ridiculous. But is this enough? Maybe not. You may say it's not. Give me a second, I'll show you something. Why are we concerned with this? This is in the past. No. This is today. This is happening right now. This is happening as we're speaking right now. It's happening on X. What I'm discussing right now, the foundation was laid in the 30s, but the seed was planted in the 30s, but it's still growing. It's still bearing fruit. By the way, I don't have any problem at all with Igbo saying, "Oh, we want to be proud." I mean, every ethnic group, should be proud of who they are. But you cannot be proud at the expense of others, especially when those others are not even on the same level with you. And this thing should be said as respectfully as possible, but it has to be said. Give me a second, I'll find you a page. I know the quote. What's the quote? The God of Africa is specially created. Yes, I know it, but I want to read it out so it doesn't look like I'm making things up. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this now. I'll tell you once I'm done reading. I'll tell you why I want to read this one. The God of Africa has specially created the Igbo race to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. Now, remember, there's no there's no Ga, no Yoruba, no Hausa, no Igbo, no Bachama, nobody. We are all Africans. Right? All right. Let's see what else Zik said. He said this on 25th June 1949 in Aba. There was the Igbo State Assembly, and this is what Zik said. It would appear, remember, No. I found it. Let me just read it to you so I won't waste time. This is what Zik said, 25th June 1949. It would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. Wait, did you not say that we are all one? Didn't you say we were one? Like we were all one. We had, there will be no differences. We're all one Africa. No Igbo, no Hausa, no Yoruba, no Fanti. Everybody is one. How come it was now your own group that God specially created to lead the rest of us on the continent? Now, here's the thing that I find very, very crazy about things. I want to tell you this thing. It may sound somehow, but it's the truth. I went to look for stuff for a book. So I found a book. It's a collection of speeches by Azikiwe going back to the 1940s. It was published in 1960. That document is called what do they call it? Something on a collection of speeches. Sure. If I find it out, I'm going to let you know. I just saw it now. A selection from the speeches of Nnamdi Azikiwe. That's the name of the book. 1904-1996 was after. Here's the point. What if I told you that if you get that book, what I just read now, you're not going to find it in that book? They changed it. The thing is this, and this is the crazy part. When Zik made that speech in 1949, when he delivered it in Aba in June of 49, he also published it in West African Pilot in his own newspaper. So people are able to reproduce what he published. Forget what he said. They're able to reproduce what he published and to critique it. By the time he then released his own, by the time he now put it out, so like, okay, give me a second. I want to read to you what he said in his own version that came out much later after the backlash. And that's why if you look for this speech, right, I can assure you, and I've seen I've checked different places, the version you're going to find is the one in the collection of speeches by Zik. And that one was doctored. I'll read to you what is in that one. Got to move fast. By the way, again, like I said, this was 1949. The Renaissance Africa was published in 1934. He started playing the ethnicity stuff by 1937. Then in 1949, while leading the Igbo Federal Union, he then delivered this speech. June 25, 1949. This is what he said. Now, let me read what the original thing he said, and you now compare it so that I might be show you are. This is the original thing that he said. It would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. That's what Zik said originally. Let me read to you what he now published. I mean, that's what he published in 1949. Let me read to you what he published in 1960 from the same speech. It would appear that God has specially created the Igbo people to suffer persecution and be victimized because of their resolute will to live. You know what they call graduate? When Shoyinka calls somebody graduate and people were angry, oh boy, people don't understand. Excuse me. When Shoyinka calls some people graduate, call somebody graduate, and people were like, oh, don't say that. You don't understand. This is graduate at the highest level. The speech said it would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. By the time they republished it, they said it would appear that God has specially created the Igbo people to suffer persecution and be victimized because of their resolute will to live. Since suffering is the label of our tribe, since suffering is the label of our tribe, we can afford to be sacrificed for the ultimate redemption of the children of Africa. And Leo, Stephen, Mata. That's what they changed it to. That they will be sacrificed. Since suffering is the label of our tribe, we can afford to be sacrificed for the ultimate redemption of the children of Africa. Is it not fortunate that the Igbo are among the few remnants of indigenous African nations who are still not spoilated by the artificial niceties of Western materialism? Just say you couldn't afford it. Anyway, let's just stop there for now. The point you're noticing, if you are noticing it, everybody is supposed to jettison their ethnic identity and say we are detribalized, but he and the people he leads must hold on firmly to their ethnic identity. And then they must teach the rest of us that theirs is actually better than all others, and then everybody has to bow to that one. Which is why, let's go back to where we started from, which is why an E on Twitter in 2025 will say, I wish to be Igbo so bad, because when people are talking about podcasts and they start denigrating his own people. And when he then grew some balls, when he then got bold enough to criticize Peter Obi, for the first time he got the shock of his life. They were insulting not just him, but his ethnicity. That's why the fact that he's committed not just to Peter Obi, but to Igbo people. Why? Because if you are really a subject, because you're supposed to be a subject, if you're really a subject, you would not have the audacity to even criticize the Lord and Messiah, Peter Obi, His Excellency, Peter Gregory Obi. To criticize him is to show they are still standing straight and you are still acting as if you are not conquered yet. You've got to be conquered. You can't make up your own mind. You can't decide what you think. This is the Lord and Messiah. You have to believe him. You have to vote for him. To not vote for him means that you're a tribalist. And to not acknowledge that his ethnicity is greater than yours also means you're a tribalist. To even talk about the greatness of your ethnicity shows you're a tribalist. Because how on earth are you talking about the greatness of being Yoruba? What's the big deal about that? Why should you be talking about Yoruba? I'm so glad I'm Yoruba. That's why there's a DJ, was yesterday, they insulted that guy for saying something about how happy he was for being Yoruba. He did not insult any ethnicity. He just said that he was glad he was Yoruba, and the rain on him showered down. You know, how many of us know Ernest? He's a singer in America. How's the song? Rain on us. One rain a bulori on molo money. Why? Because to say that there's something good about your ethnicity is to claim that you're somehow better than them. You don't have to compare. You don't have to compare. Just that claim that there's something good about where you're from is enough. I found what I'm looking for. DJ Tunes. He said, my culture, my tradition, Omo Yoruba. That was all he posted. 1:47 p.m., 6th January 2026. That was yesterday. That was all. And the ants came out of their hiding. Yeah, second part. Sorry, I'm looking for something else. I want to show you guys. Second part now leads me to something I'm very careful of. And I'm very careful of it because extremists have taken this thing and stretched it. And I know where they're coming from. And I try to say everybody's not like that. But to be honest, right now, it's becoming very difficult to be able to speak up for people like this. I'm going to read this. It's very important. It was an because this is important. A young lady was responding to somebody's post where the person insulted Yoruba people. And this is what the person said. You don't have to guess what ethnicity the person belongs to. You already know. But this is what he says. He said, I won't read everything because it says if the whole of Nigeria finally decided to drop all tribal and religious biases and come together in unity to enforce a better Nigeria, the Yorubas and the West would be the only problem because amongst all ethnic groups, they are the most cowardly. Let me first say this. Have you heard it before ever that Yoruba people are cowards? Have you heard it? Have you heard that statement before? Let me just, so it doesn't look like we're just making anything up. Have you heard it before that Yoruba people are cowardly? Just want to confirm. Maybe I live in an alternate universe. Have you heard it before? That I'm not saying is it true or not. It's not about whether it's true yet. Have you heard it before? Yoruba people are cowardly. Yes, you've heard it. Okay. Do you know that the way it comes, it doesn't come as an insult. It comes as a joke. It comes as a joke. Look at these Yoruba people, they are cowards. They are not on X, in real life. You've heard it on stage. Comedians. When comedians want to talk about Yoruba people, there's that thing they always put there that, oh, they're cowards. People want to fight, Yoruba people will not fight. They're cowards. You heard it. One guy was unfortunate enough to say it on this stage. And all I have to say was that if you look through your history, can you give me 5 names in pre-colonial Nigeria, 5 names of heroes from your ethnicity? Forget your town. All of you put together, give me 5 names. No, Pastor Bolaji did not say it. What he said was not that. It didn't say coward like that. What he said was that they always say errora. He inferred it, but he didn't say it. Let's not say that he said. So I said, name 5. Then I said, no, make it 3. Give me 1. If you check your history as a people and you don't have one hero, how on earth Are you going to look at Yoruba people and call them cowards? And the people that were saying it are Igbos, and Igbos have there's no hero from Igbo land before, even till now. We're all here when the man in Ghana said he wanted to build something for Igbos, and he was going to use ancient people to name the place, and instead mentioning the names of the ancient people. I was shocked. He mentioned Zik, he mentioned Sir Louis Mbanefo. I'm like, ancient? This man died in 1996. How is that ancient? You don't, and you say it because you're trying to make up for what you lack. But we Yoruba people just laugh about it. They say we are cowards. That's very funny. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. It's not a type. Stereotype would mean that maybe you do something where in your country, there's no basis for that nonsense. Well, we laugh about it because we want to be, good neighbor. We are all Nigerians. The person is telling you his reality. He is a coward. 1 second, please. He has no sense of organization. He has no sense of, read this book by Okudi Banoli, Ethnic Politics in Nigeria. He said it, the Igbos never fought together as a common group. Never. That's what he said. So there's no chance to even prove valor or heroism. Even the one that let me not go into that. The point is, all these things that you just hear, just snide remarks, it just comes dear. It's chipping away at your self-esteem. Especially for a Yoruba person, especially for young people. Oh, they are cowards. We heard it growing up. We laughed about it. So you almost believe it was true. This coming from a group that cannot give you one name of a hero, just one hero in pre-colonial Nigeria. Even in this Nigeria that you are giving one name. Well, thank God now the Kano came up the other day, maybe it's one. But you've heard that stuff, right? This is what people say, and on social media, it's young people use social media and they hear these things. Oh, you're coward, you're dirty. Yesterday I was reading a book about where that dirty thing came from. I was like, really? It's another conversation, but let me just tell you what I found out. I was just yesterday, interestingly, I read interesting things. That when these guys came to Yoruba land, they noticed that, okay, let me say it this way. You know that when Yoruba people use the loo or the toilet, the way we clean ourselves is different from how the Oyinbos do. Oyinbos we use tissue paper. That's why during COVID, when all of them were looking for tissue paper, I was like, what's the big deal about this tissue paper that you guys want to die over? Like, what is it? Like, they opened stores and everybody just rushed tissue papers. That's toilet rolls. So, according to that report, when these guys got to Yoruba land, they saw that they were using hand and water. Now, I'm Yoruba, so I grew up using hand and water to clean up. That's the, and by the way, even if you use tissue, because you should use tissue, if you use tissue, you still have, I still think it makes sense to use water. For something I'm just used to it, so even if you use tissue, you still want to use water. Then they thought about the fact that they were using water and they said they were dirty. These were people coming from forests, using leaves. Seeing people using water, saying that they're dirty, you like, wait. And then from there, you say, they are all dirty. Or you go and live in the ghetto, the cheapest part of self. And then you see them live in a certain way. Then you pull that and extrapolate and just transpose it. You two, you hear it and you laugh. Say, well, it's just banter. It's not banter. Someone says, wash your hand with soap. Yes, now you wash, then you wash your hand with soap. But the point is, as far as they are concerned, where they are coming from, that's dirty. Thank you, Yemo Knight. Let's keep liking on TikTok, please. Oh, you know the one I hate most is that coward thing. And I hate it because not only is it not true, it's that the person who is saying it is generations. Nobody in his entire generation has the audacity, has the right to say it. Considering they have no record of heroes. And if you say what I'm saying right now is tribalistic, you are dumb. Because there's no way you don't see the person calling an entire ethnicity cowards and you never condemn it, and there's no basis for it, and I'm telling you something based on facts, and you call that tribalist or tribalistic, that means you are dumb. And the person who called it tribal is even here, just came in right now, and I told him that day, I will say it again, you cannot find one Igbo hero in pro-colonial Nigeria. You still can't find anyone till today. But they use this word, oh, you are cowards. You don't know about Balogun Derinlo. The other day, we're going to get back to this. The other day, when Oni was talking about the whole incursion with Fulani, you remember what he said? He mentioned 1840. He mentioned that when they came, they were pushed back in 1840. How do you think they pushed them back? By singing praise and worship, or by doing on your nofila? They fought. And from that war, we had a lot of people who became major heroes. And one of the most popular is Balogun Derinlo from Ibadan. There's Jalumi. What happened? Even the Kiriji War, where we fought, intertribal within ourselves, were intra-ethnic, but intertribal. Even that one, you had people from different. You have Fabumi, okay, Messi. You have heroes on both sides. If I mention Ibadan, you think of Latosha. If I mention Ija, you think of Kurumi. If I mention, there's hardly any place. Okay, Messi, you think of Fabumi. When you mention different parts of Yoruba land, you have names coming up, and a person who cannot even afford to have one name is calling you coward, and you are laughing about it, say it's comedy. That's nonsense. I can give you examples. Wars that were fought, even the ones we lost, shall we fought, Abi? The word forest, by the way, I'm not being insulted, is actually Ogedengbe Agbogungboro, thank you, Ogedengbe from Malaysia. When I use the word forest, I'm not trying to even be insulting, it's what you will see in books. Came out of, so you can't come out from wherever you came out and I say, oh, what do I call these people? Cowardly. You were the coward. You're the one who always run when something happens. Look through the history. Azikiwe was away from Nigeria from October 1965. He did not return until February 1966. Who does that? Essentially ran away. What did the Fajuna do after killing the Prime Minister in Lagos? He ran. Not Iran, the country. He ran all the way from Lagos to Enugu. Then he ran from Enugu, he went to Ghana. Just running all over the place. What did Ojukwu do? That one even has a record. He has a record of running. 1966, July 29. The counter coup. Ojukwu ran from his residence to the police headquarters. Then he ran 67 miles from police headquarters to Onitsha. He was hiding in that place, now called Babafemi Ogundipe. We are behind you. The eastern region is behind you. Just make sure that you collect your power from Gowon. Gowon must not become the head of state. He was hiding though. In Onitsha. Left Enugu. And when he started the wala that caused the death of many people, what did he do again? He ran. I don't know why he did not Iraq, but he ran. He didn't Iraq. He ran to Côte d'Ivoire. And I don't have any problem with your history. That's your history, your reality. It is well with everybody. But there's nothing, you've not earned the right. Number one, I'm not even a coward. But even if I were to be one, you haven't earned the right to call me that. Because there's no history of heroism where you're from. We've got to say these things to our young people. People need to know these things. Not so much because you want to insult people, but because you've got to know who you are. And one of these days I mentioned the other day, we're going to be mentioning some of these wars that happened. And that's why it was very important to me when the Oni mentioned 1840. It was just last month.